Continuing with our wonderful series on Euro 2020, I'm very pleased to welcome one of the foremost pundits of football, Don Hutchinson, midfielder forward in his playing days himself. Good to see you. Most important question, I hope your family and you are safe and healthy, and you've got your vaccines done, Don.
Yes, Hrishi, how are you? I'm all good. I'm fighting fit. I'm good. I'm ready for the Euros.
Excellent. Now, let's talk about your country, Scotland. Scott McTominay says that Scotland are capable of beating England. He says he's played with Shaw, with Rashford, with Maguire in the Premier League. And, of course, he was brought up with Dean Henderson. It's a well-known fact through school. So he should know a thing or two. Your views?
Yeah. I think we can, Hrishi. I honestly think we can. I think England have got 1,000,001 problems going on in terms of trying to put youngsters like Jude Bellingham into the team, who's an amazing young player, but that's difficult because he's only 17, to try and boss a major tournament. They've got people like Jordan Henderson and Harry Maguire who are not match fit. There's problems all around the England camp at the moment where Scotland seem to be, cruising at the moment. We're winning games, we're qualifying for competitions, we've got a really good squad. All the players are playing either at Celtic or Rangers or the majority in the Premier League. As you said, we've got people like Scott McTominay, who's a winner. He can play in midfield, he can play at the back. Billy Gilmore's amazing. John McGinn's had a brilliant season at Aston Villa. Shea Adams is brand new to the Scotland squad, but he looks really confident at scoring goals. And momentum's really good for Scotland. We're in a really good place.
Yeah, which actually segues in nicely into my next question. I mean, the euphoria of that penalty shootout against Serbia in the playoffs has died down, but you're absolutely right. I mean, John McGinn has been so important for Aston Villa. Che Adams switching allegiance to Scotland was so good. I want you to talk about that back trio. I find them fascinating, which is McTominay, Tierney, and Andy Robertson.
Incredible. I mean, it's incredible that probably, and I'll say this sort of loosely, but our best two players are left backs. It's incredible. You talk about England with their right backs. It's just incredible how England have got a million right backs and Scotland have got a million left backs. But it makes Scotland versatile. How they'll play, Scott McTominay might play on the right side of a three, Hanley might play in the middle, and then you've got Kieran Tierney, who's played as a three at Arsenal. Then you've got Andy Robertson, who's probably one of the best left-sided wing backs in world football, and he played all 38 games for Liverpool last season, so he's fit and he's strong, never misses any games. And the dynamics down that left-hand side for Scotland could be really key for us.
Don, Indian fans have heard of Billy Gilmore. You mentioned him, but there are a few uncapped youngsters in that Scottish squad that I'd like you to talk a little more about. I mean, there's also Nathan Patterson, David Turnbull. Your thoughts on these youngsters?
They are really good players, exciting young players. They've got so much confidence. When you watch them play, there's a little bit of arrogance about them as well, which is always a good thing because you need that on international duty. You pull that blue shirt on Scotland and you represent the country and you wear that badge. And they do it with ease. They've got fantastic futures ahead of them. They're really talented players, can play in a number of positions as well, so they're versatile. And they'll be really good additions to the squad. We'll see how Steve Clarke goes in terms of how many sort of uncapped and how many youngsters he plays. But as a squad, I think those two are really good additions.
Let's talk of Steve Clarke a bit. Your reading of him, what he brings to the table. I mean, this is absolutely astonishing. A long unbeaten run. I believe it's the longest in 44 years. Wow. Also, he succeeded from what could be called a poor spell from Alex McLeish. Don, yeah. I don't know whether you agree with me or not.
No, I totally agree. I think I think Alex McLeish didn't do a good job, but at the same time, he never had a pool of players to try and choose from. And when you're trying to qualify for different campaigns, Euros, World Cup, and the longer it goes on, you get put into the different pots, and you're into pot C and into pot D, and you're coming up against likes of France and Belgium and all the best sides, and it makes it sort of nigh and impossible to try and qualify. But Steve Clarke's now got a really good pool of players to choose from. All these players are playing, and the majority of players are all playing, as I said before, for Celtic or Rangers or for a lot of Premier League sides. So they're getting good exposure, they're getting lots of minutes. And I think he's a very calm manager, Hrishi, as well. I don't think not much phases him. I don't think he gets too high, and I don't think he gets too low. He's not really emotional. He's just steady away. He's got a good number two in Stephen Reid behind him. John Carver, number three, who I played under a few times. He's a really good coach as well. So Steve Clarke, I think, is a very balanced manager. And I think the players, I think they feed off that. They know he's not going to be too emotional.
I'm now going to look at some of the other teams in the group. I mean, there's been so much said about England, and I actually did a full episode with David James on England, so I'm not going to get too much into England here. But
Yeah.
you know, David says he could drop two squads that could win Euro
Yeah.
with the 26 that Gareth Southgate has got. I'm not going to argue with him on that one right now. But let's talk about Croatia. Mandzukic, Rakitic, Subasic have all retired. Don, do you think they can move beyond the quarters, because they still have Luka Modric, they have Perisic, and they have Kovacic?
Yeah, I think going past the quarterfinals might be a little bit of a stretch for them. As you mentioned, Hrishi, they've lost some really important players. Croatia have been an amazing side for a good 10 years, but there's a new cycle of youngsters that's going to have to come through for them. They've still got, as you said, people like, you know, Perisic is a really good player. Modric has just been, you know, one of the world's best midfield players for a long time and had a stellar career. But I think going past the quarters might be too much for them. I think the take going through the group and then relying a little bit of luck on who they might meet in the phase after. So I don't see Croatia going deep into the competition.
The Czech Republic, I mean, in 1996, playing in England, they reached the final. So you could argue that there's a bit of luck in there as far as England is concerned. They're tough, aren't they? The West Ham duo, Thomas Souček and Vladimir Kufal. There's Patrick Schick, Jakub Jankto. Just your views on the Czech Republic.
Good side. I like Patrick Schick. I think he's a really good player. He's got to a point in his career now, Hrishi, where he needs to play and he needs to get minutes under his belt because he's been around a few different clubs now, but he's a talented player, very good in the air, you know, left side, right side, you can link the play. Soufal at right back's had a brilliant career at West Ham in his early days. Soufal's been probably one of the best midfielders and certainly one of the best signings that's came into the Premier League in terms of how much he actually cost. You know, brilliant in both boxes, fantastic in the air defensively. He scores goals, he's brave, never misses too many games. They could be a little bit of a dark horse. I'm not sure they've got the squad depth to try and go far into the competition, but they might be dangerous and they might upset one or two teams.
Don, I'm going to move on. We talked about Clark. I'm going to move on to some other superstar managers and what you think of them. Fernando Santos helms Portugal, and lots of expectations from him. I mean, this is the squad that shocked the world by winning the Euros in 2016, and he was coach at that point in time. Lots of experience. I mean, a squad that still has the great Cristiano Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, Ruben Dias. You think he's obviously going to be looking to replicate the heroics of 2016, but your reading of him as a manager, Fernando Santos?
I think he's a very good manager. I don't know him personally. I'm not sure. He looks like when you watch him, he's a winner. He looks as though he's a manager that you want to play for. And also, I think he's quite smart where, you know, he's got someone like Ronaldo who could be almost like his number two, if you like, and he can be his manager on the pitch because Ronaldo loves the game. He likes to boss the game. Ronaldo likes the game to be played the way he wants it to be played. And he can take that from the manager and he can take that onto the players. And you mentioned people like Ruben Dias and you look at the Portuguese squad and it's ridiculously strong. You know, they've got threats all over the pitch like Jota. You know, I think João Felix I'm a massive fan of João Felix. I think the kid is absolutely dynamite. I think he's easily going to be one of the best players in the world and might be pushing for Ballon d'Ors, not in terms of goals, but how silky and how he plays the game. He moves really, really well. So I think Santos has got an ally in Ronaldo that he could use in the dressing room to be a sort of number two on the pitch for him, and they should be a good combination, those two.
Don, let's move on to Roberto Martinez. Everybody says that Belgium's golden generation is nearing its end. I mean, there is still Lukaku, De Bruyne, Hazard, wealth of attacking options. He has been criticized by the pundits, saying that he lacks a bit of attention towards the defensive side. But this is in effect his last, tournament with the side. He's been linked with the Spurs. So, what do you think of Roberto Martinez?
I think he's a good manager. I've met him many a time. I've worked with Roberto. He's a student of the game. He watches every single minute of every single game that's on TV, and the amount of footage that he watches behind the scenes is incredible. His knowledge is really good. I think Belgium have got to a cycle now where they've got really, really good, brilliant midfield players and excellent front men, but they're lacking a little bit in their centre halves. They're not the best anymore. Alderweireld's just He's a really good centre half, but he's coming towards the latter part of his career. I think Jason Denaye has done really well in France, but he's not top end. He's not amazing. So defensively, I think when you play against Belgium, you can feel as though you can hurt them, but at the same time, you've got to respect them. The trouble is Kevin De Bruyne going to be fit? He's had an operation, I hear. He's going to be wearing a mask. So he's not going to be fully fit and fully confident until probably 1 or 2 games in. Hazard's the same. He's not played hardly any minutes in the last couple of years. So it's important behind the scenes that Roberto Martinez tries to get him up to speed as much as possible. So names on paper, Belgium should be strong, but the goings on just behind the scenes, I think, doesn't rank them as being favourites anymore.
Let's move on to Luis Enrique, the Spanish manager. I mean, this man is revered in his home country, and this is a man who won the treble with Barcelona in his first season. But some questionable decisions in this particular Euros. Don, he named only 24 people when, the limit is 26. He doesn't bring Sergio Ramos. And now he's got a very, very difficult problem because Llorente has tested positive. Busquets are already tested positive. The under-21 squad played the last friendly. Is this going to be the most difficult challenge in Luis Enrique's career? What do you make of him?
Without a doubt, it's going to be difficult. Spain are in transition anyway. Take away all those problems, I think we're in transition anyway. It's not going to be the Spain that we watched 6, 7, 8 years ago where they were just dominating the ball and everyone was afraid of them. Now I think there's a little bit of a soft underbelly now with Spain because they need that new crop of young players to come through. Even though Sergio Ramos had a tough season and missed a lot of games, I have no idea why the manager didn't take him and put him as part of the squad because, like I was saying before about Ronaldo, Sergio Ramos could have been amazing in around the campus and the training ground and getting the young players up to speed and telling them how much it means to them. In the meantime, he could have been working on his fitness, even if he has to come off the bench for 5 minutes to try and protect the lead in a quarter-final or a semi-final or a final or how far they get. So Sergio Ramos could have been critical. So really, really bizarre that he's took a light squad and hasn't took the full quota of players. So I'm not expecting anything big from Spain. I think they'll do well at what they do, but when they come against the big teams, I don't think they've got a chance this tournament. Roberto
Mancini, let's talk about him. He came in and took over the reins in very turbulent circumstances, Don. 2018, when they got rid of Ventura, he came in. He's having a long run. In fact, I just read in the news today that he's got a contract extension till 2026.
Wow.
So that's a long run, and he's obviously one of the most decorated managers in Euro 2020. What do you think of him?
Love him. I think he's an amazing manager. And I think, talking about players to, the pool of players that he's got to try and pick for, I think Italy are my dark horses, Hrishi. I think they are. I think when you look at the back and you look at people like Chiellini and people like Bonucci and Donnarumma in goal and Florenzi at right back, then you think of like the midfield and you think Jorginho, you think Barella's come off a brilliant season at Inter, exciting young player. Marco Verratti as well. So that's a good 3. And everyone talks about like the French and the Belgium and the front 3 of those. I think the Italian guys are really, really underrated. I'm not sure why people are not giving people like Immobile any love, people like Insigne, people like Chiesa at Juve has been sensational for them. So my dark horses for the tournament are actually Italy. Mancini's a good manager, but a really, really good Italian side where now I think they struggled over the past tournaments for a goal scorer. They've got people like Belotti now, who's a good number 9, but more so Immobile, who's just been sensational now for a couple of years.
And of course, who wouldn't want to be Didier Deschamps? Look at the wealth of resources at his disposal. But people still say that despite all the attacking talent at his disposal, he's always preferred to have a more pragmatic style of play. Not many people approve of it all the time. Where do you stand as far as Deschamps is concerned?
Amazing. I mean, the best group of players to pick with. I mean, I was looking at their squad the other day, and you could pick 3 players for nearly every single position. It's incredible the talent that they've got. And even when you delve a little bit deeper and you look at the players who didn't actually make the squad, a lot of those players arguably could take France to the semi-final, even the final, they're that good. And when you've got people like N'Golo Kanté, who everyone loves, and I think he's just so underrated because he makes everyone so much better. Then you've got people like Paul Pogba, and you've got Antoine Griezmann and Kylian Mbappe. who's a genuine superstar, and he's going to be winning Ballon d'Ors for fun in years to come. They are the clear favourites, in my opinion, France. I think they're really, really strong. I'd like to see him be a little bit more adventurous, I must admit. I'd like to think, Didier Deschamps would take the reins off the players and go and let them express themselves a little bit more, because they could score, I think, a lot more goals. When you look at the friendlies they've played in and the qualifying groups, they didn't really hammer too many teams. They beat teams comfortably, but they didn't seem to put any sort of 4, 5, and 6s past anyone. So I think that's what I'm waiting to see from Deschamps. Can he take the reins off them? Can he go and let these players fly?
And conflicting views on Gareth Southgate, but then that's football. David James, for example, says, look here, he's a good mate of mine, fantastic bloke, and England is in the right hands. Baichung Bhutia, who was, a former India player, was telling me the other day, saying, England's got great talent, but he doesn't know how Gareth's going to handle them. So what is your reading of Gareth Southgate?
I think a little bit of both. I think David's right in terms of, Gareth's the best man for the job, and he's harder and he's braver than most people give him credit for. He doesn't mind bringing youngsters in the squad. He likes to play players who are in form. It's not like the England of past where, once you got in England's 11, no one really broke into that. He just couldn't get into it. Gareth's different. He's played people like Jude Bellingham. He'll play people like Declan Rice. If Jordan Henderson's not fit, he'll make a big call on him. If Harry Maguire's not fit, he'll make a big call on him. I think this is probably one tournament a little bit too quick for these young English players. I think people don't underestimate how hard it is going into a major tournament, a prestigious tournament that's so hard to try and win. And when you've got players like Jadon Sancho, brilliant, Jude Bellingham, brilliant, Raheem Sterling, brilliant, but some of them have not had good seasons, and some of them are I wouldn't say playing at the highest level, because Jude Bellingham is, but he's only 17, so you've got to take that into consideration. You can't just say to him, he's 17, he's been brilliant at Dortmund, he should be brilliant in a major tournament, where you're forgetting about the players like N'Golo Kante and Paul Pogba and all the geniuses that are playing in the competition. So I think Gareth Blood and these youngsters is 100% doing the right thing. It's whether those youngsters can take them as far as the England fans think they should go. I'm not convinced. I think it might be one tournament just come a little bit too quick for these youngsters.
Let's close down with your most favorite Euro memories. Are there goals that keep flashing in your mind of past editions? You can even talk about teams in the past edition, who you thought were absolutely spectacular, the golden generation, as it were. So just share your memories, please.
Oh, memories. When you look back, Van Basten's goal for Holland might just be the best goal of the Euros ever. Hurts me to say it, but Paul Gascoigne's goal at Wembley against Scotland, flicking it over Colin Henry and volleying it into the corner. Even England's destruction of Holland at Wembley, they were good. But there's been many great World Cups, many great Euros, and you look back, and I always think the ones when you were watching when you were a kid, and the French teams of like Platini and just amazing players, and the memories. Once I think the tournament unfolds and starts, I think come back, and then we're going to look at this competition. Right, for all the youngsters now, like we were when we were youngsters, Hrishi, watching like all the Euros and all the World Cups starting from Spain '82. That's when my first sort of knowledge of football came in, and I watched all the Euros and the World Cups after. And then all these youngsters now across the world are going to be watching, this tournament. That's where I think the memories will come from, and that's where people like me and you can look back at footage from 10, 15, 20 years ago and love it. But I'm excited now for the youngsters around the world, especially all the guys and the kids and the boys and girls that are coming, through lockdown and through isolation and through COVID, to actually watch football or soccer it is in America, to have their memories. I think is quite special for them.
Beautifully put. Well, I've got to ask you, everybody looks up to you as a football pundit, as a broadcaster. Who's somebody that you look up to when you were a kid or otherwise? You just watched them doing their thing.
Hrishi, I had loads of people like Paul Gascoigne, because me and Paul Gascoigne were quite close. We lived in the same area. Gaz was a really good mate of mine, still is. But I think we've all got favourite players, haven't we? We have this discussion. Is it Messi? Is it Ronaldo? Is it Pele? The sad loss of Maradona hurt me, because he was my one. He was my one where I watched him. I couldn't copy him because he was just too good. But I've watched these DVDs. I've watched the movie that was made. I've watched his story on how good he was and how brutal it was for him playing. He lived his life to the full as well off the pitch. So I think if you had to nail me down to one, the greatest player of all time, I think was Diego Armando Maradona.
I know that documentary you're talking about. It's
Amazing
fascinating.
movie.
The one made by Asif Kapadia, the guy who made Senna and Amy.
Great Senna.
Fantastic,
I
fantastic.
mean, I remember the start of the movie when he's in the car on the way to Naples, and it was like it's spine tingling.
Totally. And you're a pundit, like I said, you're on the air as a broadcaster. Who have you looked up to? I mean, somebody you saw on the TV or on the radio and said, "Wow, those are great skills."
Yeah, no, I take pieces of advice from everyone. I mean, Andy Townsend's a good mate of mine, and when I first got into commentary, which is different to what I was doing, being a pundit and having a bit of a laugh and a bit of a joke and analysing things, then you go on the other side, you put a microphone and you're commentating on the game. You take bits of advice from people like John Champion, Clive Tilsley, as many people that you try and pick their brains. And Andy Townsend, who's a good mate of mine, I said to him one day, I said, what's the best bit of advice you can give me now being a commentator? And he said to me, if you've got nothing to say, don't say anything. And I thought it was priceless because when you watch football, Hrishi, you watch football not for the commentators, not for what I've got to say or what the commentators got to say. You want to watch the 22 players on the pitch. That's where your enjoyment comes from. You don't want me babbling on for 90 minutes talking absolute rubbish. So if I've got nothing valuable to say, sometimes just put your microphone down and let the viewer actually watch the talent. That's who you're there to watch, not listen to me babble on for 90 minutes talking rubbish.
You're being more modest there.
No,
that's great advice.
I'm being truthful because I watch football. I can empathise with that, and I listen to some commentators. And I was going, "Will you just please be quiet? I want to watch the match." And if I can't, and the advice from Andy was correct. You don't want me if you're watching. Let's say you're watching England Scotland, and I'm commentating the game. You don't want me going, "That was a good cross. That was a good goal." Yeah, we all know it's a good cross, a good goal. You want me to add something to it. That's where my expertise comes in, and if you've got nothing to add, leave it.
Football fans in India can gear up for the biggest football festival, two of the most prestigious international football tournaments, UEFA Euro 2020, Copa America 2021 on Sony Sports channels, over 75 matches through the course of 30 days. Catch Don Hutchinson on Sony Sports' studio show Football Extra for the upcoming UEFA Euro 2020, and UEFA Euro 2020 is live on Sony 10.2 and Sony 10.3 if you fancy watching it in Hindi, 11th June onward. Thanks very much for your time. This was lots of fun, and I hope to see you soon and do this again. Bye-bye.
Loads of fun, Hrishi. I could do this every day. You send really good positive energy. Keep smiling.
Thank you.